So, welcome to Painting with Jasmine Rempel Art. I'm Jasmine, and today I'm going to be playing in my sketchbook with watercolors. I'm wanting to prepare to make some butterfly bookmarks. So, it's been a little while since I've painted butterflies, so today I'm going to practice some butterflies. I hope you join me. I have a variety of materials ready. First of all, I have my sketchbook, which is with 140-pound cold press paper. I'm going to be using a palette of Daniel Smith paints. I also have a variety of brushes available to me, which as I use them, I'll show you. I have a bit of gold metallic, it's actually bronze pigment, but it comes out in a gold. I have some kosher salt. I've got my ceramic mixing tray, some paper towel. I've got a pencil to sketch with and some water available. I've also got my gummy eraser and square cement. So these are the things I'm pretty sure I'll be using most of all. I'm going to start with just spritzing my paints so that they're ready for, I can activate the pigment, and I'll do that right over here. Great. All right, now I'll just sketch a butterfly, and my goal is to use mostly wet on wet technique. Oh, let's just do a little guy down here. A simple little butterfly shape. Because it's my sketchbook, I aim to be fairly loose and free with what I create in here, rather than kind of uptight and worried about being perfect. I think that will be probably pretty good for now. All right, so now I'm reaching for a brush. I want to work with something that's not very big, of course, because these are small shapes. So what I have here is a number 4 round brush. This is the Silver Black Velvet series. I really like these brushes. I'm going to do wet on wet within the wings. I'll be wetting the wings with water, and then I will be putting wet pigment and letting the colors blend and bleed together within the wing. So I'll just start here on the right wing for you to see. And right now I'm applying water. I've dipped my brush in the water, and I'm putting enough water that I can see a nice sheen in the light. You may not see the sheen as well as I do, but there it is, and I'm sure you will on yours. My aim is that this paper is saturated with water, but there's not so much that it's running out of the wing. Now that I have that, I'm going to reach into my Quinacridone Rose. This is a rather new palette to me, so I'm getting used to the colors, and I've been enjoying them. Quinacridone Rose. I'm just going to tap that color right into the center here and push it out a little. There we go. And then I'm going to reach for a different color, cleaning off my brush. And I think I'll reach for this Hansa Yellow medium. Pop that right there, add a little water to it so that it is nice and wet. And I'm just going to put this color in the edge of the wing. And my goal is for these two to meet each other. And I'll encourage that. Take a little bit of water off the brush. I have a little too much. And I'm just going to gently move that yellow into that pink and that pink into that yellow. And there we go. I have a bit of just a connecting of two colors there. Okay. And I'm going to do the same on the other wing because this will be a symmetrical butterfly. I'm getting water in first and then reaching for my pigment, same as I did before. Just before I do though, I'm taking a tiny bit of salt and I'm putting a few granules of salt right in there, and you'll see why later. It will end up having a little texture effect. All right, there's my water. I don't want too much. I don't want a big pool. I don't want too little because I don't want it dry. It takes some experience to learn the right amount of water that you'd want for your wet on wet technique. And that comes with practice, trial and error. Pushing that out and reaching into that Hansa Yellow. Tapping a little off on the paper towel so it's just not super, super wet. And again, letting the two meet together. This time I didn't have to do a lot of pushing. The color ran right into the water, and I can see a bit of a blend here, a bit of orange. Okay, I'm going to reach for my granules of kosher salt. And in case I forgot to mention, that is the type of salt I use. I really like kosher salt. It has bigger granules than table salt. Table salt would work fine too if that's what you have. All right, lovely. So I want these two wings to dry a bit before I tackle these ones. So what I'm going to do is just add another butterfly. Extend some wings. Might have a more of a teardrop shape on these ones. And the body will be coming into there. And that is good for me, for my practice purposes. Right, let's repeat the process, but with some different colors. So I'm going to, again, start by wetting this wing. Very peaceful to paint these butterflies. There's no pressure, it's relaxing. Pretty colors, makes me think of the coming of spring and summer. Right now I'm in the middle of winter. Okay, so I'm reaching for Ultramarine Blue. Put that right in there because there's a little yellow here. I don't want a green. And that's just pure Ultramarine Blue. And this time I'll tap on the outside edge and look at that, how beautifully that's blending in, how pretty. And I think again, I will reach into my Quinacridone Rose and I'll start that rose right over here. And bring it up with the tip of my brush. And those two, oh, I kind of like that little white between them. So, but I do notice that that rose is very, very strong in color, which is fine. Now, it always dries lighter. I took a little more blue in my brush and I'm going to connect these colors right there. Let them do a little blending and I'll help them with my brush. I only have water on my brush at this point, just a little bit as well. Just going to go back and forth, and now I've got a purple in the center. Pretty. Once again, I'm going to put a little bit of salt in that wing, and then I'm actually going to run just a wet brush. I'm cleaning my brush off, and it has some dampness to it, although I am, you probably can't see well, there we go. I'm rubbing off some of the wet, and I'm actually going to run it along here because I want to allow some of that color to bleed out, just for an effect. Bleed out. And there we go. When I do the bookmarks, I like to allow some bleeding out to happen. It just creates an effect I like. If you prefer not to have this happen, then of course, just ignore what I'm doing and keep within the confines of your wing. Okay, let's go to the other side. Same thing, two colors combining in the center, creating a third. That beautiful blending quality of the watercolors as they meet together in that wet, on that wet surface. That's the ultramarine blue again. Just taking a little more from my palette, now tapping it into the edge of that wing, watching that beautiful run, beautiful bleed. I love that. This is part of the reason I choose to use watercolors of late as one of my main mediums. I did a lot of acrylic painting in the past, but I have more recently been using watercolors as my primary medium. There we go. I might take a little more of that blue and just tap it right into there so it runs down into that, just very delicately into that pink. Remember, this is experimental, and you could be filling the whole page with butterflies, and just as you go through the process, you'll discover what you enjoy most. You can see that I ran my brush over here. I wished I hadn't, but I did. Now I have a bit of a purple blue there. That's okay. All right, so I'm quite enjoying this bleed out. When I do a bookmark, which I'll make a tutorial of, I'll have an edge there, and it will just add an interesting feature. There's some salt. All right. Now, this one is dry enough that I can work on the bottom. So, I'm going to wet my bottom area. I think I'll use the same colors, top as bottom. Top as bottom. So, my Quinacridone Rose. Very dark. That was a lot of pigment. It wasn't dilute with much water, and that's okay. It's kind of nice to have a little bit of a variation from the one above. And let's go into that Hansa. It's Hansa Yellow Medium. Any yellow you have will do. Any pink you have will do. In fact, any color you have will do if you want to try out this very simple technique of wet on butterfly wings. There's a bit of blending. In fact, that pink I'm bringing all the way around this time, just having a bit of fun with it. There we go. I don't think I'm going to put salt on the bottom wings. Wet. Filling in that shape. And reaching for my pink, and I want it to be quite strong as it was in the other wing, so I have more pigment on my brush than water. It's kind of a thick pigment, and that will create that very vibrant, dark valued color. There's more of a wash on the pink above, more of more water in the pigment, so it's more translucent. Coming into that Hansa again, nice and more of a thick with pigment. When you see me reaching to my paper towel, it's just instinctual. I have a sense that I have too much paint or water on my brush, and I just kind of tap it to have less. That's what's going on there. Cleaning off my brush, and as I did on this one, I want to drag some of that pink down and around into that yellow around there. Good. Oh, that's pretty. Very, very pretty. All right, the top one is ready to go. And I'm going to zoom down now for you and see if that helps you to see better. There we go. I haven't taken off the salt yet. I'll rub that off soon. Now I'll go back up so you can see how I'm using my paints. All right, let's move into wet. And again, I'll use the same colors as in the forewings on these hind wings. First the water, wetting that paper, reaching into my pink, my rose. There we go. Bringing it down, and I'll have it meet with my blue. I received these paints for my birthday in December, the Daniel Smith, and I'm enjoying trying them out. Pretty. I like it just like that. I won't force the blend this time with my brush. I will allow the paints to bleed into each other with that water. And there's the rose. Popping that down. Good. And the blue. There was lots of water there. You can see that blue really bleeding up, and you know what? I like that. That's part of why I choose watercolor, because it's a kind of a process of letting go. You can't always control what's happening, and sometimes you have to just let it spontaneously do its thing. I was teaching some kids the other day watercolors, and one student said, well, this didn't happen as I expected, and that's what I find lots with watercolor. But sometimes this magic happens. You don't expect it, but if you're able to just let it go and go with it, it can be better than you formerly imagined. So there's my two little butterflies. And of course I want to be thinking of a center, and I'm wanting to be thinking of removing that salt, and perhaps even adding some extra features on the wings. But for now this needs to dry, and I think while it's drying I'm going to add one more butterfly, but I'm going to do it in time lapse. I've got a brush that has just water on it, and it's my same brush I have been using before. And again, I'm going to run that water along this edge and allow a bit of a bleed out. Just a bit of a bleed out here. There we go. I didn't put any salt in these, and I used Quinacridone Rose, and actually this was Quinacridone Gold, which is really quite a beautiful yellow color. All right, so these are dry. I'm going to just remove the salt and work on the bodies. So this is what's called a rubber cement square, and I use it to rub off salt. Start up here. And I'll zoom in for you to see the little effect that it made. You can probably see the just little white speckles there and a few white sparkles there. And in each wing, it just adds a little extra touch. I like that. All right, time to do the bodies. Right now I've been using a number 4 brush. I think for the bodies I'm going to switch to my number 2 round brush. And when I do the bodies, I just use the same colors I've been using in the wings. I'm not terribly realistic, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint wet on dry. So I've got my Ultramarine Blue on my brush and I can see what it's going to look like. I might want a little bit of a darker, so I've put more pigment, less water, and I'll just move into this body and just paint on a little parts, little abdomen, a little thorax, and just a little head there. Not being terribly fussy about what the body's going to look like. Trying not to be anyway. In acrylic paints, when I paint with those, I'm often quite detailed, so sometimes I just have to back myself up. I'm reaching into my rose and I'm just going to tap a little rose there. And I'm just going to blend that into some segments of the body and kind of look a bit like a shadow. Let's zoom in so you can see that better. That's all I'm doing. Right, for the antennae, I've got my rigger brush or my liner brush, and I think for this, again, I'll use that blue, and I think I'm going to add some Jane's Gray to the blue. Jane's Gray, I was doing a lot of rock painting and rock tutorials, so I've used up most of my Jane's Gray. I'll just put that in the blue, and that's creating just a darker valley, and I'll just like that. And there we go. Same thing. I'll go in for that rose color. There's a little thorax, something really simple. There's a little abdomen, wet on dry. I did not wet my paper first. I have a pigment on my brush, and I'll just leave it like that and reach into my Payne's Gray, and this time I'm going to mix the Payne's Gray with the pink. If I need pure pink, I will need to reach for I will need to create it in a different well from now on. Okay, let's make a little line down and a little line down. There's another butterfly. Now this one, of course, needs its bottom wings done. Grabbing my number 4 brush and do those bottom wings. Wet on the paper in that shape, and reaching for my quinacridone, and as I said, I'm not putting it back in here because there's Payne's Gray in there. There is its own little well, and it's nice and wet. Check out how wet it is. Add a little more pigment, a little less water, and tap that right in there. Watch it bleed upwards. There we go. Sometimes when I'm making watercolor, this is the Quinacridone Gold, by the way. Sometimes when I'm making watercolor, songs come into my mind. Right now, if you've seen Frozen, which honestly, it's a kid's cartoon movie, so you may not have, but it's sure taking kids by storm. Most children know who Elsa is, one of the main characters in the movie Frozen by Walt Disney. Anyways, in the first movie, she sings a song called Let It Go, and as I'm putting this pink in, that's what I'm hearing in my mind. Let it go. Of course, the tune is much better than I could sing, so I won't dare, but ultimately the lyrics are let it go, let it go, let it go, and more. You could look it up if you want to. That is how I feel when I do watercolor, is I have to tell myself, let it go. Let the color and the water create their effects and enjoy watching it. of course there's skill involved in technique, and that all comes with practice. Okay, I actually like that little white mark that didn't, it must have been dry. I must have wet everything else except that. So I'll leave that. It's a little happy accident. Super. Now, this is wet, so I won't put a body in. I need it to dry. But what I can do is I can at least get the color mixed up because it will dry before too long. So, reaching for my number 2 brush again, and there's the pink, and I will put a bit of that gold right in that pink, and that will be, and maybe I'll reach even for a bit of this blue-gray, dull it down a bit. Nice. That will be my body color. I'm going to be naughty. I really want to put that in, and I feel like I'm just going to give it a try and just touching to see if it's still wet. It is damp, so I'm not going to allow the thorax to touch those 2 wings. I mean the abdomen. The thorax is here. Why do I know butterfly part terms? Because I am a teacher, a primary school teacher, and most years I have grown butterflies in the classroom. I get the larvae, the little caterpillars, and we grow painted lady butterflies. It's always a joy for the children. There we go. It didn't touch those edges, therefore there's not a bleed from the abdomen into the wing. Okay, mixing up a bit of gray blue in there again. It's got this kind of gray burgundy color, and there are 2 antennae. Lovely. What I would want to do now, of course, is dry this and then erase my pencil marks. And I realized that I made 2 very similar colors and one quite different, and that's quite all right. As I said, this was for practice. I hope you enjoyed watching this practice video, and I hope you try out your own butterfly sketches. Of course, you could, after it's dry, you could go in with another liner brush and you could create extra little designs. Why don't I just do one to show you? I'll just add some more little features, some more little patterns maybe. So much you can do. In fact, sometimes I use my gold pigment to do that, and I think I'll do that on my bookmarks. So if you enjoyed this little practice video, then subscribe to my channel. I'd love that. And you can look forward to wet on wet butterfly tutorial for bookmarks. I do have another butterfly tutorial for bookmarks. It is wet on wet, and then I go in after with a white gel pen to add some detail.